Welcome to Try Not to Overthink It, where we explore the intricate landscape of mental health, well being, and everyday life. I'm RJ.
I'm
I'm Khalil.
Join us as we dive into insightful conversations, expert perspectives, and personal stories that shed light on the various dimensions of mental wellness. Whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or a deeper understanding of the human mind, this podcast is your safe space to engage, learn, and navigate the journey to a happier and healthier self. So today I wanted to talk about taking the time to heal. For a lot of us, especially as you matriculate through the different phases of your life, we all experience different traumas, different struggles, different trials, and different tribulations. And we navigate into that next phase of life without necessarily always taking the time to kind of heal and to reprocess and recalibrate. And I thought it was important for us to kind of talk about that today. So, for me, personally, I am of the mindset that everyone should always take the time to heal. Now, we've all kind of heard that saying, that cliche of time heals all wounds. Some cases that is true. In some cases, not so much. But I definitely think that for a lot of us, we tend to see things from the standpoint of instant gratification, and just instead of taking the time to process, and instead of taking the time to understand why we went through what we went through and try to recover from it, we just move on into something else without really taking that time. What do you guys think?
I'm definitely of the notion of processing, giving you time to properly process. And I think that even with your peers, and I feel like I've gotten a lot better with using my tears, allowing them to be more cathartic in nature and not just kind of frustration. I don't see anything wrong with that, but I think sometimes there are better ways to work through that. But I definitely think that there is a timeline um, for processing through loss. I won't say grief, right? But I definitely say loss. I don't think that grief is only relegated to death. I think grief can be any substantial
Right.
loss, but some losses, every loss, whether it's a grief, like a serious loss or a smaller loss, I do think that there's a time frame, and which is called the grieving period of a loss. I
Mhm.
think that we do have to give room for the grieving period. Yes.
And that's all the process. You said it earlier. Um, we look at things, in their immediate impact on us, right? In a certain viewpoint, and it's always subjective because it just happened. It's something that happened immediately, and you're going to look at it from a different perspective later on in life. Once you start to really grasp what happened to you, right? People get in relationships, and they lose somebody who's close to them. That person moves away, they break up, whatever the case is. And it's like you said, it's just not death. A person doesn't always have to pass on for it to be some form of loss or some grief behind the relationship. And I don't want to relegate this just to relationship. This could be you losing a job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We have this tendency where it's not just about relationships, it's jobs. I've crashed a car before.
But say your car, I lost my car that I had
I
for
couldn't
like
get to
years,
work.
many years.
Yeah, it was very depressing. I couldn't get to work. I had to hop on the bus. I had to do a lot of things that I didn't want to do. And it stretched me out a little bit. It was some growth. It was a growth process. I had to humble myself, ask for rides, and do all sorts of things. So the way I looked at that situation at that time, it was pretty devastating in the immediate. And that goes for anything that can happen to you that can make you feel as if you've suffered some sort of loss. And for there's always some traumatic event that would preclude that, right? So a breakup. I wanted to get back to that. When you're really close with somebody, and then all of a sudden the relationship breaks apart, we have a tendency to always look for someone or something to blame to explain it. So it can help us compartmentalize, right? Sometimes it was just that season, it
Yep.
was just that time, it had to expire, but we're still
Mm-hmm.
looking for someone to blame. There has to be a catalyst, there has to be something. And I think that's exhausting for people, and that can really influence, like I said, our perception on it, and it can get in our heads, and we're looking for this thing to explain it to us. We need to be able to explain this instead of just looking at it objectively and saying, "Hey, look, you know what? Um, this didn't work out, and I need to take time to heal. It did affect me." And I don't need to look for an answer on why it didn't work out, right? And why it didn't go my way or the way I thought it was going to go. Because that right there, anytime I put expectations on other people, I always get let down. And I really like people to avoid that when I'm meeting with clients and I hear all these expectations they're putting on people. And I'm like, what if that doesn't work out? What are we going to do then? How are we going to pick up the pieces and move forward?
I think that for most people, where it has to start, I think that for most people, where it has to start is recognizing the need for healing. The first step to recovery is acknowledging that, hey, I need to heal. For a lot of us, we don't necessarily, we sometimes overlook that healing can take different forms. And even like what both of you guys alluded to is the fact that, we all go through, the loss or the grief that's associated with the loss. And if you don't take the time to, recognize that you need to heal, it doesn't make whatever you went through go away. It doesn't make what you went through any easier to cope with or to deal with, because you didn't acknowledge that it existed. Just by ignoring it doesn't mean that it goes away. And I think that for a lot of us, we get into that mindset of out of sight, out of mind. I just move on. And one of the things, like I remember I dated this one girl when I was in graduate school, and her way of getting over a relationship was starting a new one. And I was just like, that's just not healthy. The adage of the way you get over somebody is get under somebody or get on top of somebody. That just don't work.
The grenade pull. That's
a grenade pull, right?
But how adaptive is that in other facets of your life when you just?
It's not sustainable.
It's not. Like you said, it's not sustainable, and I think that it causes a bigger problem for yourself later on down the line, because there's going to be something else that comes up that you're going to have to understand and recover from, but because you never learned it or never utilized it before, you're not going to know how to do it later. I think that also something that is important is self-compassion, being able to give yourself a little grace and mercy.
Right.
For some of us, myself included, this is what I suffer from, majorly, is I'm very critical of myself as an artist, as a creator, as somebody that loves to create things. I have those drawings of my coworkers in my office. Like a lot of people oh my God, those look so great. Not understanding like the effort that went into making them. Like that particular draft may not have taken me that long, but I may have drawn that same sketch like 5 or 6 times.
Right.
And I wasn't satisfied with those 5 or 6 drafts, so I just kept restarting until I was satisfied with this overall product. And so being overly critical of yourself, you don't always give yourself that grace and mercy to be able to acknowledge where you could have been better, where, you may have contributed to certain things, or, why certain things came up and you didn't recognize that this was a problem because you're being overly critical and you're not giving yourself that compassion.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I've said it before. You cannot expect to make $20 decisions with a $2 budget, right? If I only had $2, I'm gonna make a decision based on the resources at hand. My mother used to always say, "Make the best decision with what's in front of you, and you'll never have any regrets." That doesn't mean that you're always going to be satisfied with the decision you made later when you have more knowledge, but you can confidently say, I made the best decision with what was in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you do that, a part of that healing process can begin without the guilt. I think guilt is the enemy of healing and health, because when you sit in guilt, you're not critically looking at all of the other factors that played a part in there. Like, what part of
Right.
this was mine to bear? What part of this was someone else's? What part of the situation? And I'm thinking of like, which is how we interact with people, whether it's a breakup, loss of a job, loss of some property. There's always more than one person involved, unless it was just you and you torched it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
then there's something else to consider. Like,
Right.
why did I torch it? Maybe there was something in my past that led me to this thought process that this was the way to handle this situation. And I still made the best decision with what was in front of me.
Right.
When it talks about the grieving process, I think a lot of it is, yes, number one, identifying um, that there's some healing, but I think even a step further is identifying that I was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
We don't
Yeah.
give enough credit to that, especially you hear men talk about, feelings. I don't got time for feelings. But
Right.
feelings are important and everyone has them. And so being able to acknowledge my feelings were invested in this situation, there was a level of attachment and the expectations were not met. And therefore, I was affected by that, right? Whether I was let down, usually if you're hurt, having a hurt feeling, it's because the expectation was not met, and so there's some hurt that is attached. And I think being able to acknowledge, hey, I did have something invested in this, and you didn't make good on that investment,
Right.
and now it might be causing me to want to pull away from you. I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's fair to say and necessary to reassess. Like, I I'm no longer able to engage with you at the level that I once did because of the change in how I view our investment or my investment in this space, right? When you do that, it allows you to, one, not take ownership of full blame of whatever the situation was. And I'm thinking, I mean, even the death of a loved one. A lot of people, the stages of grief, there is that bargaining and
Right.
like, oh, this is my fault. If I did this differently,
If
and
I
that
had done this.
debriefing, if I had done this, if I had done that. Well, there's sometimes nothing more that you could have done. You could have done everything different, and the result still would have been that, right? Loss of a job, loss of some property, whether it's a vehicle or a house or something. You could have paid all of the bills on time, and the car still would have got crashed. You could
Right.
have took a different route, and the car still wouldn't have been able to drive. You could have been the best girlfriend, the best boyfriend, and the partner still would have broke up with you or still would have disappointed you. Excuse me, I don't say that from a cynical place. I say that from a life place.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are all individuals, we all have the power of choice. People are going to make choices that you do not have control over. And so at some point, there is going to be a level of hurt. But that's not for you to own 100%. It's for you to say, okay, hurt was had. What's my next step? How do I want to deal with the hurt? I can acknowledge it. I can bury it. I can take ownership of it. I can excuse it,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are several things we can do with our hurt, but once you know how you want to process the hurt, there then begins the healing process. But even if you want to bury it, if you're burying it, that's still a part of the healing process for some
Mm-hmm.
people. You're
Right.
circumventing actual healing, but it is a part of the
I
process for
want to
some
speak
people.
to that. You said something about people really showing some indifference about certain
Mm-hmm.
circumstances that happen in their life, and they act like, well, it didn't matter, or they don't care. And so you're not acknowledging your real feelings behind that, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, and that's a defense mechanism. Indifference is a defense mechanism, right? But during my time, I've seen that it's almost. I see that in a lot of men during my time as working as a clinician. I see it in a lot of men, and then when we finally get to the bottom, I had a client, and we were talking about his mom. His mom was, a substance abuser. She drank a lot, and there were certain things she did, and he said, man, I just shoved it down. I really didn't want to acknowledge some of the things that she had done.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship really did not get any better the older he got. And he was able to kind of forgive her and go through that healing process once he acknowledged how he felt about how she treated him. He was speaking to her getting remarried and then favoring the stepdad more than him, and like, just really not valuing him. He didn't feel like he was valued in the relationship. So, talking to him about that, he said there was a level of like indifference. Well, I don't really care. I don't want to talk about my mom. I want to talk about that. And then the older he got, he realized he had this resentment. And so in order to get healing, like you said, you've got to be able to name that feeling.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to accept that that's how you feel. This thing happened and we need to process. And people have especially, I'm not going to say it's cultural, but I remember growing up after my dad left, my mom, she's one of those people, like, she had to use what she had. My grandmother stepped in. She had to help take care of me and my sister. And, basically my sister was a little bit older. So it was like, hey, we got to move on. There was no time to grieve that my father, I was 4 or whatever, there's no time to grieve that he was out of the picture. And I remember like her just having to push forward and having to kind of like sweep it under the rug and be like, hey, he gone. We got to move forward. And we,
Right.
we moved several different places, and we really never got to process that until we were older, and
Yeah.
I started noticing that in my culture, you start talking to people. Yeah, my dad left a while ago. Anybody worried about that? Well, how did that make you feel? And how's that affecting you present day? And
Now you're
people
talking about
don't
inner
want to talk
child
about
stuff, inner child and reparenting.
that.
I don't know
Yeah,
if this is the episode we want to dive into that, but
we're not.
I like to
We're
talk
not.
about that.
But the thing is, certain times I think people, and especially in African American culture, are indifferent about a lot of things that other people call traumatic.
Yeah.
When you have sessions with people and you like this and that, your father went to prison, your mother stabbed your father. Yeah, but that back then I ain't worried about none of that.
It is traumatic though,
Look at
whether you call it that or not.
right, but look at your unmanageability right now. There's some things coming up that I'm seeing with you that are definitely some of the offspring of those things. You know what I mean? They all kind of
That
go hand
point
in
to
hand.
that
So
imbalance.
to me, that
Absolutely.
difference, it does matter.
So I think that, like, for both of you guys touched on a couple of things that I agree with. Like, one, cultivating mindfulness. Two, acknowledging your feelings, and then also three, learning and growth. I think that for a lot of us, like when it comes to, you know, with anything, the first step to addressing to getting past anything is to acknowledge that it's a problem. Acknowledge that certain things make you feel a certain type of way, because that's the only way, one, that you can develop some semblance of mindfulness and not allow it to quagmire you, and not allow it to get you stuck.
Right.
Because the whole point of our existence as human beings is to always progress forward. Now, you learn from the past, but you can't reside in the past. And so you definitely can pull things from your past to make sure that you don't continue to find yourself in that same space as you were previously. But for some of us, the hindrance to that is that failure to acknowledge that I feel some type of way. As Khalil alluded to, I think that for, especially, you see that a lot of that, especially when it comes to us as males, where we're programmed from a very early age to be not the most emotional. Men don't cry. Men are taught to be strong and taught to be super masculine and taught to just, for lack of a better word, thug it out. And so the problem with just thugging it out and not addressing your feelings and just pretending they don't exist is one of two things happens. One, you become emotionally dead. So when you experience things and you are a part of a relationship or interaction with other people, you will not be able to be emotionally supported for them when they are experiencing trauma. Or two, you have developed these maladaptive coping mechanisms that do not serve you and allow you to be able to express your anger in a healthy, well, not even your anger, but your emotions in a healthy way. And for a lot of us, again, not having that mindfulness to recognize, like, I got to move forward, and I got
what's
to.
happening now? I think that's the principle of mindfulness. What is happening
Happening
now?
right now.
Mm-hmm,
Right.
How is this shaping me?
mm-hmm,
And how do I want to proceed? That is
mm-hmm,
the key of mindfulness.
mm-hmm.
I think more than just emotional death. I think it's more of like an emotional management atrophy, right? If you
Yep.
think of your muscles, if you don't use them, they will atrophy. They'll get smaller. They won't have the functions that they
And
used
you get weaker.
to. Right, you get weaker. And so when you think of emotional atrophy, then I I'm no longer able to show up in the space in a way that's going to facilitate health,
Mm-hmm.
facilitate mobility, right? Because our muscles are there to help us move. And so same with our emotions. When we understand what the emotions are for, our emotions are the brain's way of regulating what the body is feeling and how the body
Right.
should respond. But if my emotions are dysregulated, then I am no longer showing up in the space where I'm able to facilitate the behavior that perpetuates continual momentum,
Right.
right? And
Absolutely.
I'm weak in that scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
I fall into a puddle. Raj used to always get on me because he was like, you are such a crybaby.
Mm-hmm.
And what he respectfully, I think he could say that because he'd seen me in different seasons. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would cry because for a time period, because I was so strong, I wore the moniker that my only options were crying and strength. I was dysregulated because there were times when I needed to sit in the space and process my feelings. But I viewed that as a sign of weakness because I don't have time to do that.
Right.
Which, with the buildup of my emotional atrophy, then when I would finally cry, I was in a weakened state.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Right.
not in a state of momentum. I was not in a state of processing. I did not have the ability at that point to even regulate my tears. It was an overwhelming
Right.
emotional response to what I was going through. Fast forwarding to years later, when I had developed some sort of emotional regulation, now I'm able to come to a space where I'm able to say, okay, what is my body feeling in this moment? And how do I get back to a space of forward momentum?
Mm-hmm.
What that I want to do next? And
Right.
sometimes that next step is just to sit and allow myself to recalibrate, to say,
Yep.
okay, we've been attacked and right now, I want to respond in a way that may end up being harmful, but I'm going to choose something that's going to allow me to be able to get up and to move when I'm ready to. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If I break my leg today, it'll hurt. I'll probably cry, but my body will be doing things that says right now it does not have the capability to move in the way that it always has. So I need to send things to it. My brain is going to send signals throughout my body to say, okay, we need to send different blood cells, different my neurons are going to be firing to kind of control. It's going to be sending things to my pain receptors to say, okay, this is not mobile in the way that it used to be, but as I give myself time to rest, then my body will send new messages and say, you should be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when people have missing limbs or they have an inability of their limbs, it's they can still have feelings from their brain because the brain says
Right.
it should be able to do this. Enough time has should have passed. They should be able to
You should
move
be able to
the limb,
do it. Then they get the
right?
phantom limb
They
syndrome and
get
stuff like that.
Yeah.
phantom limb syndrome.
Right.
They get the random nerve
Mm-hmm.
firing in the leg that is paralyzed because the brain is saying you should have been over this. You should
Right.
there should be movement here. Our emotions are the exact same way. When we give ourselves adequate time to really rest and recuperate, the brain, if healthy, if you put these things in there, it will be able to tell you, okay, let's progress, let's navigate to the next part of this healing journey. You have what you need to get up, you have what you need to take the next step. But you got to create a safe environment for the brain to do what it naturally does.
Right.
And see, you said something right there that I really liked, and that was, balancing, rest. And, even with balancing rest, I think that it's important that a person take the time to not push too hard too fast, because pushing too hard too fast too soon can impede the healing process. If
Mm-hmm.
it's no different than if you're recovering from a major leg break, trying to walk or trying to run too fast could re-aggravate the injury or make it worse. And I think that for a lot of us, what we tend to do is we tend to, not move in a healthy way where I experienced this. Okay, I should be over it by now. And by not taking the proper time to heal and rushing back too quickly, it doesn't always benefit us in the best way. It doesn't always allow us to come back at our best. And you see that a lot with athletes, where an athlete will have a major injury and the team needs them to win. Or if the team needs them to win, the championship is on the line, and you'll see somebody come back way too soon when they shouldn't have, and they go out there and they injure themselves even worse than they were previously. And I mean, for me, I'll say this: like when it comes to just taking a knee, because even like my friend, one of my friends, his father had passed away. And so his father had passed away, and he and I we've known each other now for going on almost 10 years now, 5-6 years now. And so he was talking to me about it, and he was just like, I just need to take a break. And so he started going through the process of being able to take that break, being able to take that knee, because his mind was all over the place. His heart wasn't in what we were doing. He just had so many different things that were just going on in his life. I just don't have the mental capacity or the mental bandwidth to be able to address every facet of that's going on right now. So I need to be able to take a knee, take a timeout. I'll come back, but I just need to take a knee. And I mean, like, he and I had that conversation. I told him, I said, that's probably the best course of action for you at this time. Because, like I told him, it doesn't make you weaker. It doesn't make you less than. It doesn't mean that you're soft, because you said you're prioritizing your peace and your mental and emotional stability over whatever it is that we have going on. Like people, and I will say this all the time, people who really matter will not mind. Those people who mind, they should never matter. So if you have to take the time, however long it may take, to be able to get you together to be the best version of yourself, take that time. If it's a day, if it's a week, if it's a year, if it's multiple years, take that time. Because I mean, I'd rather, and I tell my coworkers this all the time at work, it's better to do too much than not enough. Right. Ain't nobody ever gonna tell you, hey, you're doing too much in regards to taking the time to be the best version of yourself. Because I would rather have the best version of you than have a diet version of you. I mean, when you think of like sodas, for example, I only drink diet sodas, but most people don't drink diet sodas because they prefer the full-on flavor of the regular soda.
The taste of aspartame. That's basically
so. But the thing is, like I said before, there's a distinct taste difference. There's a distinct quality difference in regards to the drink. I mean, it's no different than if you drink a non-alcoholic margarita versus an alcoholic margarita. It's going to be a taste difference. It hit different. And so when you think of yourself being healed and completely made it to the other side of recovery versus while you're still or not healed, the two uses are two different quality of product. And I think that for a lot of us, like I said, taking that time and just being able to, give ourselves that grace and mercy is what will allow you to be the best version of yourself. I mean, I never, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You finish.
I think that for some of us, being able to celebrate the progress that we make. Right. Because again, like when you go through an event, regardless of what it is, like I remember, like I've talked about this several times on here about how I watched the Country Wayne skits. And so there was a skit where one of the characters, he and his wife are going through a divorce. She was unfaithful, and he's like, hey, I can't. He found out they're going through a divorce. And so he's in therapy for it. And he's talking about it. He's explaining to the therapist how he's feeling, why he's feeling the way that he's feeling, all these different emotions he's experiencing. And the thing about it, though, is like Unique has alluded to this on several episodes before, too. Like, going through something as traumatic as the ending of a marriage. I mean, for some people, that's the equivalent to someone dying. And people don't really understand, like, you like when you, like most people, I can't speak for everybody, but most people, when they get married, I would assume that you're not going into the marriage thinking we gonna get divorced. Most people are thinking, and when we take these vows, we going
Yeah.
I ain't dating nobody else. I'm not getting back. I'm not gonna be out here in these streets looking for nobody else. You was it, and I'm it for you. That's just what it is. And so for you to have to come to grips with, my wife was unfaithful to me, and then the fact that my marriage is over with. This is a person I thought I was gonna die with. We have a child together, and we're not gonna be a family anymore. Like being able to say that out loud, you could see how that impacted him. Being able to unpack those emotions and being able to say it out loud, unpack the emotions, and then for his therapist to be there to, as Unique likes to say, be in that space with him, sit in that space with him,
The emotional state,
and be able to, be that anchor. Because I mean, like when you're going through something traumatic like that, it's like you're caught in a storm. You're just flying all over the place. And for her to keep him emotionally grounded in that space, to be able to allow him to unpack and unburden himself with those emotions and those feelings, but still not get caught up and sucked off into the storm. I mean, to me, I feel like a lot of us don't do that enough. A lot of us don't do that enough, and because we don't do that enough, we find ourselves stuck in a spot. Where I'm not going forward, but I'm also not going backwards. I'm just stuck in this same spot.
which
And
is dangerous because then you
exactly.
become vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
for an attack.
Yeah.
A sitting target is easier to hit than a moving one.
Absolutely. I was just about to say that. And so, regardless if you're taking one step, two steps, three steps, or a half a step, progress is progress. And I tell my clients that all the time. I'm not expecting you to be a brand new person tomorrow or the day after that or the day after that. No. Any progress this way, instead of going this way, or instead of just staying right here in the center, is progress is worth celebrating. And I think that for a lot of us, we have to celebrate the small things. Hump the good stuff, as one of my coworkers used to say.
Yeah, I think even because we talking about sitting in and processing a loss, but I also think it's important to take a break before there is damage done. This year is my first year taking a break as a therapist, and taking a vacation. I am not one who takes vacations. I call them the little holidays. I work all of the little holidays, Labor Days, like I work them. Not because I had to. It's just like
It's
it's a good
because
day
she
to make
likes
money.
money. She out here rich.
You heard what I said. It's a good day to make money. I
It's a
think
good day to
every
make
day
money,
is a good day to
baby.
make money.
It's your job. It's your
I
job.
think
You're
every
working.
day you're awake is a good day to make money.
That's right.
Okay? But I told myself, I said, well, how good is the money if I'm too tired to enjoy it, if I'm not able to show up for my family? And
Mental
so
health.
this year, nothing's wrong. The business is great. I've not had any awe-defining come to Jesus moments. My clients are well, but I said I'm taking a break in order to be the most effective version of me. I needed time to just sit and do nothing, to really reflect on the year that I've had, to strategize on what I can do to improve. Excuse me. And that's something that I cannot do when I'm serving other people. I need quiet time to do that. I think we don't always, what Raj was talking about, I don't think that we always give enough space to the quiet time. In therapy, we learned that quiet is not the enemy. That is where people do their greatest work. And don't be afraid. They teach us not to be afraid of the silence, because it's in the silence that people get their awakening, they get their aha moments, they find out the catalyst for their healing when they just are able to sit quietly. And so I don't think that that always has to come at a bad place. I think in your marriage, there needs to be time as a spouse where you take maybe a day to yourself, where you just say, I'm going to take some quiet time to process, how am I feeling in this space? How's this marriage working out for me? What do I like about it? Do I still like this person? Do I like the person I'm becoming in my marriage, right? At the job, take the time off. If you have PTO, Take all of
Use
it.
it. Use it.
Use every single PTO day that you have available. Every year you should end the year with 0. Unless it
Well,
rolls over,
well,
end it with a 0.
I've worked with people, and I'm like, how you got 100 hours of PTO? I can't even. I don't understand how they do it.
That was me. That was me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that person.
Working yourself
I'm
to
that
death.
person. Because I'm of the notion of every day is a good day to make money.
Right.
But I'm now I've evolved and learned that it is better, right? I am more wealthy, not monetarily, but more, and it does benefit me monetarily, but I'm more wealthy when I am well.
Right.
And I am well when I am properly rested, when
Right.
I give myself time to process my emotions, my thoughts, my feelings, reflect on what went well. I've planned a lot of events in my life. I love planning events. And so as a logistics person, the project is the project is important, but the debrief is just as important as the project, right? Anytime I've gone through a loss, I give myself time to debrief. Anytime I've done any big transition in my life, I am now giving myself time to debrief. What did I like about it? How did that feel? What went well? What didn't go well? What would I have done differently next time? That might be the scientist in me, but I also think that just how the logistics of my brain works.
Well,
I want to know how to get the best results possible the very next time I have to do that.
well, unique. I love the fact that you and RJ were both speaking to the fact that it's okay to take time for yourself. That's still self care, however you want to break it down, right? Um, the funniest thing is that people, like, I'm going to compare people to cars. Let's use that metaphor. People get to running in this
Mm-hmm.
life, get to running, and RJ knows I move fast. I
Yeah.
move fast. I don't stop sometimes,
I,
right?
I,
So
used, I,
well,
used, I used to have to tell him, stop. Stop. Let's stop and
I
let's stop and think about what it is that we're doing. And let's.
stop, sit, and let's listen. Because I think I can do everything in one day. And so my mom, she always quotes my grandmother. My grandmother used to be like, Khalil, before you leave the store, you need to check to see you have everything before we exit the store. I got to do stop and checks because I'm so ADD. I'm boom, 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 boom. And she'd be like, got your hat, you got your wallet, got the keys, you know. And so she would slow me down. And my mom brings that up all the time for me because I run so much. And so when I meet people like myself, and I'm like, you just been going, and they've been going for a month straight, 30 days, nonstop, go, 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 go. It's just like a car. You ain't get that oil change, that car's gonna break down.
yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I
No
think.
matter how good it was running when it was running.
Right. It don't matter. And I know I'm one of those people, everybody has assets, you know what I'm saying? And yours might be your high energy, you do a lot. If you don't take time for yourself, you're gonna break down. And then you're also not being mindful. That is one reason why I had to slow it down. I need to assess what's going on. I need to know how I feel about certain things. I need to know what's going on in my body, what's going on in my mind. Because, as a threefold creature, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, I have all these things in my being. I need to assess all of them. I need
Mhm.
to sit down sometimes and take a break. And I love being a people person. I want to check how this person's doing. I want to call this person. Then all of a sudden, I'm spreading myself thin, and I can't respond to everybody the way I'd like to because I haven't
Mhm.
taken the time for me to take some
Mhm.
personal me time.
Mhm.
So that
Well,
self care that you're talking about, I feel it.
I mean, the thing about that, though, is like, how effective could you be if you're firing on all cylinders versus when you're
You're
firing at
not.
50%?
Right.
Especially for those of us who have real world responsibilities. It hits differently when you're responsible for people. When you are a parent and you're not operating at your best, who's paying for that? Your
Right.
kids
Right.
are,
Right. Your kids are.
because you're not operating in the space, you're not operating at your best, at your best. And so there's going to be things, like you said, there's going to be things that you miss because you're not the best version of yourself. There's going to be things
Mm-hmm.
you forget or things you weren't looking for, or you completely overlooked because you weren't operating at your best. And so when the crux of this particular topic is allowing yourself to be the best version of yourself. Self-care is not selfish. And people.
Can we say self-care is not getting your nails done and taking fancy trips and
Yeah, it's not like we've in this social media age, we have commercialized so many terms and made them into things that they're not. We've made self-care. Huh?
those are self-indulgences.
Yeah, but it's not self-care. And I mean, to me, like I said, we've commercialized these terms, and we have people using them incorrectly. And I mean, taking the time when you have made it through to the other side of something that may cause you to take a knee or sit down. It's like taking a punch to the face. Like I was watching the UFC pay-per-view last night. Guy ate an overhand right. He was asleep. He was asleep. I'm talking about he didn't get up for a few minutes off of one punch. And so sometimes in life, you take a punch that you don't see, that sleeps you, where you're snoring, or you got to sit down, or you're sometimes like seeing, like in the cartoons where you're seeing things circle your head, or your vision becomes doubled. Being able to sit down and be able to gather yourself for a few minutes, or a day, or a couple of days, or a year, or a week, however long it takes you, again, it's necessary. It's necessary before you go out here and cause more harm to not only yourself, but also the people around you. Because the thing is that because you don't have any insight. And I mean, I talked about this in some of our earlier episodes about sphere of influence. When there's a bubble, an invisible bubble around all of us. The things that you do as you come close to people, the things and you spend enough time with people, the things that you say and do start to impact them, and the things that they say and do start to impact you. There are terms that I use because I've spent so much time with Unique, I picked up on those terms. Right. There are things that Khalil says because I've spent a lot of time with him, I picked up on saying those same things, or I do something because I see him do it. And so subconsciously, it's not even something I seen Khalil do it, so I'm gonna do it this way. Or I've seen Unique do this, so I'm gonna do it. No, it just subconsciously.
He can do that though, because he thinks I'm an amazing person.
Yep, I sure do. Yes. I sure do. So, but when we are doing things or moving in a space that is maladaptive or not conducive to the best version of ourselves, we will impact other people. And what a lot of people, and I know this may sound cliche, but hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of, and I had this conversation with one of my, people as well. Exactly, because people will see you healed, and they'll see and I had this conversation with my coworker just last week about going to church. So, she was excited to tell me she's been going back to church, and how things have kind of started to align for her since she started going to church. And she was just like, it wasn't until like you would talk to me about going to church, and I'm just like, oh, I'll go to church when I got time. She always had an excuse why she couldn't go. But she was like, it wasn't until I started to see things kind of like line up for you. It was like everything you touched, it was just hitting. She was like, that it made me like, if that could happen for him, it can happen for me. So it made her, okay, I'm going to give this a try. So I'm going to start going to church consistently, see what happens. And so she started doing that, and then things started happening for her, and she was excited to come tell me about that. So for a lot of us, we don't realize like the impact that we can have on those around us when we're interacting with them, how certain doors will open, and we will teach people how to be better by moving better. And so when you are taking the time to kind of woosah, take a break, and I tell people this all the time. I used to tell this to one of my case managers.
Taking a break to realign.
Yeah, to realign and reassess and recalibrate. I had to tell one of my case managers, one of Khalil's schoolmates, when she was working for me, everything doesn't require a response. People can say stuff to you, and it may move your spirit. The demon spirit inside you on demon time now, and you want to respond, but you don't.
Can I raise your bet? Everything doesn't require reaction.
Exactly.
Right. A response is a choice.
Yeah.
So even if I choose not, I can always choose not to react or react. right?
Mhm.
It's how I'm responding to you. So I think
Absolutely.
that I'm just raising your
Right.
bet.
Right.
Absolutely. And it wasn't until like she would experience certain things and she was like, in the back of my mind, she's like, I just kept hearing you tell me everything don't require a response. Everything don't require a response. She said, I want to respond. She said, I wanted to. But I recognized like they were trying to bait me. And because they were trying
Yeah.
to bait me and I didn't give them what they wanted, they got mad instead of me be mad.
But
And
RJ,
so,
think about it. When people know you're reactive, they can push
Hmm.
a button. That means
And
that
they
they
can
control
push it
what's going
every
on
time.
every
Yeah.
time. Look what
and
they're
They
you,
give
doing.
them
Look
permission
what
to
people are
control
doing to
you.
the basketball player, Green. What's his name? Draymond
Uh,
Green. It's like a setup now. I'm like, oh boy, about to get
trying
thrown
to
out.
get,
yep.
I'm trying to get by Draymond.
Hey, I'm trying to get hit
I
on
think
purpose.
I think one of the things that really snapped everything what you're saying into focus, Raj, is when I lost my first baby.
Mm-hmm.
I it was like it was a punch to the gut. Like if
Mm-hmm.
somebody could have taken a win from me, that would have been it. But it wasn't a 1 day thing. And the more I fought against what had happened, the more I felt myself just slipping. So much so that my dad, I'm gonna try to say without getting emotional, but he was like, I don't need you to be okay for me. I need you to be okay for you because we need you. And I mean, I was driving to work, doing mental health with people. I couldn't tell you how I got there. The only reason I had on kind of decent clothes was because we wore scrubs,
Mm-hmm.
and scrubs have tons of colors in them. So I would just grab things. But I couldn't tell you how much I ate. I couldn't tell you basic hygiene stuff. I think I was showering. And that might sound gross to some people, but I couldn't tell you if I did these things. And it wasn't until he just looked me in my eyes and said, You're not okay, but I need you to be because I need you. That really helped me to like snap back into it that something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Something is really wrong. You have to stop. And I had a boss that said, if you don't get help, you can't work here.
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? I'm an excellent therapist. I get people requesting my caseload. Like, I have a group right now that people will not attend unless I teach it. She said, because you won't deal with it. You have to deal with the fact that you lost your baby.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it took some very hard hitting up my head against some very hard brick walls for me to say, you were hurt, girl. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't because I wasn't hurting. I just didn't want to admit that I was in pain. I didn't know how to be in pain. I didn't know how to navigate the space in a way that allowed me to be vulnerable and need something that was outside of me. And so in that space, I remember that was probably my first time. No, it wasn't my first time going to therapy, but that was the time when I was pretty much forced to go to therapy. And the therapist told me, her name was Sarah. I don't think I'll ever forget her name. Sarah said, you spend so much time giving everything to everybody else, and your emotional bucks, you're depleted. You're in the negative.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in that time I said, I didn't realize how much I gave to everybody else for everything else. And I said, Nick, you have, she says, never again. You're in a space where you're in full blown crisis and you can't even see it because you're so focused on what everybody else needs.
Right.
And so I had to just realize there will be times in your life where you have to literally deposit money back into your bank so that you're not in debt. You're not in the negative. I tell my clients all the time, if you do life with people, you will make deposits. That is not optional. When you do
Mm-hmm.
life with people, you have to deposit something into them. But you cannot do that if your bank account is negative.
Right.
I was used to existing from a borrowing. I was used to borrowing money from the things
Mm-hmm.
that I placed my value in that. But it wasn't until I lost something that was very valuable to me. And it wasn't who I was having a child with. I wanted to be a mom. And
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't until that really woke me up to say you can never let yourself get to that place ever again. You have to reserve some for you. You can't give away your cup. You cannot deplete your emotional bank. You gotta do things that are gonna keep you functioning because you are valued, not because of what you do, not because of what you can provide, but because of who you are. And so, for the person out there, give yourself permission to reassess your value,
Mm-hmm.
work through it. It's hard, it is uncomfortable. That was one of the most uncomfortable times in my life. I was depressed, I was suicidal a lot of the times. I just didn't want to wake up. But I had to reassess why I was on the earth. I had to say my 10 toes are necessary in this space. It sucks to be in this space, but I'm needed here. So when you are going through that difficult, challenging time, get people in your corner who want you there because they just like you,
Right.
not what you do,
Right.
but they just like you breathing their same air, you sharing that space. Somebody who's going to ask something simple like, "Did you brush your teeth today? Did you have a meal today? Hey, you need me to come over and wash clothes with you? You folded clothes today. Is that a different shirt?" And you not get offended by it. Everybody couldn't tell me that. It
Right.
was
Right.
certain
It's
people who would
close.
be like, "Your hair needs to get done. You haven't done your hair, and that's not like you."
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's necessary. You're not always going to be able to have that insight. Having people who know and love you to tell you, hey, you slipping, and I'm only telling you this because I don't want you to slip further, is necessary.
Right. And you guys talked about it earlier, having someone who's going to sit in that space with you, who's
Mm-hmm.
going to actually help ground you. I
Yep.
believe that's what you said, RJ. That
Mm-hmm.
grounding is just like the electrical properties, right? They'll have it go to a ground wire, right, to have it be somewhere safe that puts it flat in the earth.
Mm-hmm.
It can be amazing what people can do for other people, and just sitting there quietly with you, sitting in that space, and it is uncomfortable.
It is.
I'm a therapist. I have to sit with people with that space all the time. I don't. It's uncomfortable, but that quietness, there's healing in that. By me being there, sometimes just by me listening, sometimes I don't even have to offer suggestions. I might tell you to do some self care, but literally, I don't have to say anything. I just sit in that space with them, and there's healing.
Mm-hmm.
Or just like what I know RJ always says it unique. Just saying, check on somebody, check
Mm-hmm.
in on.
Tap in with them. I mean, I think that for what you guys are both talking about, I think that and this is something that our colleagues, a lot of us struggle with this of being okay, not being okay.
Right.
Because we are supposed to be the helpers, we don't always know how to ask for help. We don't always speak on the fact that I'm going through whatever it is I'm going through. Like there are certain things, and I always talk about this with like my coworkers and even some other people I come in contact with. People like, how do you know these things? Because I watch people, and when I watch people, I can pick up certain things off of you that you may or may not want me to say out loud. So, because sometimes it can be a little embarrassing, and people will ask me, "How do you know that?" Because I watch people, because I'm tapped in with you, and so
Mm-hmm.
for like some of my coworkers, I could tell when they're off. I could tell when they're off because like some people they dress the way they feel. So when they feeling
Yep.
themselves, boy, they wearing the most craziest colors and different things like
Right.
that. And when they're not feeling themselves, they tend to dress a different color. And so like I remember one particular
Mm-hmm.
coworker, I asked her, "Are you okay?" And she's trying to play like she was, and I'm like, "No, you're," she, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." "No, you're not." "Well, how you know I'm not
Right.
fine?" I said, "Because you're not dressing yourself. You're not dressing like you normally do." I said, "Normally you got the most rambunctious colors. So that ain't you today." So, I mean, we closed the door and we sat down and had a conversation. And I mean, the thing about it though is, like I explained to her, it's not about me saying what I'm saying. It's not to be in your business. It's not to be in your business. It's not trying to overstep. It's not because I'm trying to tell you what to do. Like, because for me, King Lazy right here. Baby, I don't speak on nothing I don't care about. So if I'm saying something to you, I'm speaking on it. Exactly. If I don't care about you, if my spirit ain't moved by it, I'm not speaking on it. So me taking the time to ask you, are you okay? And be tapped in with you. As a provider, I recognize that you're not okay. And for a lot of us, sometimes as providers, we forget that. We forget that we're human just like everyone else. That we bleed just like everyone else bleed. We cry, we feel emotions, we go through the things that we go through just like everyone else does. We get so spun up, like Unique said, pouring into everyone else's cup, and then our cup is dry. And not really taking the time to replenish our cup, because you can't pour from something that there's nothing in there. And so for a lot of us, I'm glad she said that, because for a lot of us, we get so caught up in taking care of other people that we don't take care of ourselves. And that is where, when you are taking the time to heal, that is what that is. That is taking the time to take care of yourself. Because my mom used to say this when I was a kid: ain't nobody going to take care of your stuff better than you take care of your stuff. Right. And so who better to take care of you than you? Sometimes you may have to, and I know I said this earlier about self-care is not selfish. Sometimes you got to be selfish. And you got to say, in this moment, in this second, I got to put me first. I got to make me a priority. But for a lot of us, especially
all
when
the
we
time to do that.
All the time. Yeah. All the time. A lot of us
in your life
should be you. And I mean, I think that for a lot of us who are leaders, who are managers, or who are in this space of taking care of other people, we sometimes forget that one of the most important, if not the most important, to take care of is you. Is absolutely you. And so we will run ourselves ragged, chasing behind other people and taking care of other people, making sure everyone else is good, and then we're not making sure ourselves are good. And so for me, if I care about you, if I fucks with you seriously, I'm gonna make sure you good. I'm always gonna make sure you good, especially when I recognize you're not taking care of yourself. I'm always gonna make sure you good, because
that affects, like, if my community's not good, I'm affected. I'm off. I'm not moving like I should be, because somebody in my proximity is hurting. So I gotta make sure you're good. Because in me making sure you're good, that means I'm gonna be good.
Mm-hmm.
If I gotta make some space, I gotta hold some space for somebody emotionally, mentally. All right, bet. Yeah, let's get this conversation had. Let's talk about it. Let's try it out. Let's who we mad at? We're gonna be mad together for a little bit. That was yeah, you damn all right, they was stupid. You know how many times I got on the phone with Raj fussing somebody out, and I'd be like, some idiot.
Right, never heard of them.
I never and probably never will meet them.
Never will.
But they was idiots. You was dumb as I don't know what. Yeah, you right. But I'm gonna have that conversation, because I want people to understand I rocks with you. In one of our episodes, we celebrated Khalil getting his license. Like, Khalil is one of my new bros, right? He new in the family, not new to me. He's not new to Raja, right? But his wins are my wins. His losses, if he would get on here and talk about,
coming up.
Yeah, if he would have get on here and talk about a devastation in his family, it's hurting me as if it were my family, because, what you mean not good? What you mean? Now I'm affected. So it is selfish. You being well is selfish for me, because I got personal reasons.
Yep.
Right? My best friend told me, you can't die, because who am I gonna call? She said, yes, it sounds selfish.
Right, it sounds selfish.
But absolutely. Why would you think you was gonna leave me? Because then who I'm gonna call to talk about people to?
Right.
She said, we just gonna have to die together. I was like, what in the world? She said, we definitely just gonna have to, because that's selfish of you to think you was gonna leave me on earth by myself. I was like, you know what? I get it. So yeah, man, it's self-care helps you. It's others' care. I don't guess I can.
They're intrinsically entwined with one another.
Right. Right.
You can't say you care about somebody else if you ain't care for you.
Right.
If I'm hungry, I ain't cooking the best meal. I cook my
Thank you.
best meals when I'm full.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't starving, because when I'm starving, I'm irritable. I'm trying to make something fast, and my family could taste the difference. But baby, don't let me get a little appetizer, eat a little bowl of cereal before I cook that meal.
Fast food.
Baby, don't let me eat a little chips before I cook dinner. Okay, while I'm cooking dinner, don't let me eat a snack while I'm cooking dinner. Baby, I'm
Be
spending
hitting.
time on that meal. My family is like, "Are you done cooking it yet?" No, baby, I'm adding all of the
And
details. But
all
when
the
they sit
fixings and
down,
everything in there. Right.
honey, when they sit down, they say, first of all, this is way too much food to eat at 8 o'clock.
Right. Right. Way too
Okay,
much. Once you
you
hit
need
8 or 9 o'clock, there's like a line you have to draw. Like once I eat at 9, I'm sleep eating.
I'll be making them Sunday dinners on a
Right.
Wednesday at 8. Okay, because I'm in the mood.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when I ain't in the mood, baby, everybody can get some oodles and noodles, ramen, however you call it. Everybody can get what you can. A bowl of cereal.
But look, I like what y'all are
Get what I
speaking
do.
to. I like what y'all are speaking to because, um, especially in the helping profession, regardless of what you do, doctor, nurse, clinician, whatever you do, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
constantly pouring out. You're constantly investing your time in other people. But I like what you're saying because if I'm right, okay, then the people around me are going to be right.
You
The
can be
people in my
Mm-hmm.
right.
sphere of influence are going to be right. People are going to benefit when I'm right. All right, and
Mm-hmm.
when you're right, I'll be able to benefit when you're right. You get what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? And in turn, the same thing goes for us. So, and that's how we're supposed to work in community. Because, like she just said, if I'm starving, I can't cook you a meal. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? If I'm hungry, I'm a cook, right? You got to think about those things in our community and how what type of time we're investing. Yeah, I need to sit with you in that space right now. I need to help feed you in that space right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we treat you well because guess what? You're a productive member of this community. You know,
Yep.
I'm starting to get it, and you know, the older I get, you start seeing it. When I didn't have connection with a community, I didn't have good people around me. Man, you'll sit there starving by yourself with nobody. You know, and that's
Who's the
you're
person
cutting
next to you
yourself
with a
off.
plate of food?
Yeah, right. It, you're cutting
I
yourself off. You know, that's why people be like, "Oh, I'm solid. I'm fine by myself." No, you're not. I don't want
Mm-mm.
to hear that.
We're not
You
meant
need
to be by ourselves.
not meant to be
you
like
know how
that.
they say, oh, okay, it's lonely at the top.
Right.
It doesn't have to be.
Nope,
If
it
I got
doesn't.
someone and I
So
started something, now that's not to say you won't be able to keep all the same people because you won't.
nah,
You won't.
Everybody's not meant for the top now.
yeah.
Everybody's not.
You
The
can't
top
keep
is
little Pookie from the bus stop. I don't know if he gonna run with you on
yeah.
this. Listen.
Listen,
I don't
listen.
know.
Uh, little
I've said
Pookie
it
from the bus
before.
stop.
Everybody doesn't have the same level of clearance,
Right.
right? People who get to come on the first rung of that bad boy, they ain't making it to the top floor of the building. Okay, some
Mm-mm.
people need card access, some people need security clearance. But there are certain people in my network who they've got top security clearance. And baby,
Mm-hmm.
anything I'm doing, oh, they're there, they're a part of it, and I'm trying to tell them, what are you do? Why you don't have this yet?
Right.
What is going on in your life that you can't get this? Because you need to get this. I became an entrepreneur, and I'm like, all my friends who are in top security, hey, what you need to level up. Even if you work a 9 to 5, you can still do that. But I'm gonna need you to have some off days in the middle of the week. You need that's not how 9 to 5 works. You need to figure out how to make that work.
Use that
Because
PTO.
there are things I'm trying to talk to you about during the middle of the day that
Just
I can't
randomly. She can't.
random. But it's
I
business stuff.
bother RJ in the middle. I call him from work. I be like, "Hey, remember that place we needed to do a referral to?" RJ be like,
I'm
"What?"
I'm talking business at the middle. It's
Supposed to.
11:45 a.m. and I want to talk business. We've talked. We
Mm-hmm.
sent text, but it ain't
Good.
always full of
Right.
it. Because the people in my community, they always talk about I'm rich, but
She is.
any knowledge that I have,
Throwing
these
money.
guys have access to it. Unique. How do you do this? How did
I'll
you
be
get that?
pressing
How
you
do you
out shortly. I'll be pressing you out shortly. I'm trying to
look?
get licensed and
Any
bonded, baby. What's up?
anything that my community needs is accessible, no
Yes.
cost. I feel like once I've got it, baby, we all got it.
Right.
There is no barrier to the information because you're part of my team. So why wouldn't you have it? Why wouldn't you have access to
Right.
it? It took some long nights. It took me doing some different, rocking a little different for a little bit, right? Sometimes I was literally not talking. Even now, there are things I got going on with the business that these guys, they don't all have access to. It's not because I don't want them to. It's because it's in a growing phase. I
Right.
got some stuff cooking up in the kitchen. But when it's time to eat, baby, we're all eating. When I put them plates on the table, oh, y'all getting this, whether you like it or not. You're coming up because I still want you in my life. So either you come up or you get left. And most of the time, the people who I have in my inner circle, they ain't getting left, so they step up.
They're trying to move up.
Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to these riches, y'all fellas know what's what. I don't know why y'all playing humble though, because they like to always talk about it's a good day to make money for me, but these are several job having jokers over there. I'm not gonna. I ain't gonna tell nobody's business on here, but we got people who like rolling up on like retirement and stuff with their careers.
But yeah, hey, that's Raja. Raja been working for a pretty long time and been in the military.
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say that. Certain
I don't
people
know
want
what
to get
he.
a paycheck,
Yeah.
but
I'm broke. I'm poor. Don't listen
You
to
know,
that. I'm destitute. I'm poor over here. I'm poor over here. So I'm taking donations.
some people about to be collecting like a pension or
we need
whatever.
some extra light. We need y'all to promote
I
the
mean,
show.
I'm trying to. Listen. Anybody that's listening to this, I'm looking for a sugar mom. Anytime. You know, help your boy out. Help your boy out. Take care of me.
He is single.
Take care of me.
We'll sprinkle sugar right back. Let's not pretend, okay?
Get it
I
right
don't
when
have.
he gonna spend.
I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say it with from my chest. I don't do broke friends. I heard a girl say that. I was like, yeah, I don't do broke friends. Broke friends require too. They're a liability, baby.
Yeah, they
I
are.
got nothing but assets on my team.
Oh my gosh.
You and a buddy of mine were talking about that, man, because like you bring up traveling or doing something, they be like, where you go? You did what?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like, you went out the country? Like,
My
oh man,
child
go
is not
ahead,
even a
man.
liability. My
Yeah,
baby, she reminded me, my child ain't even a liability. She says, baby, I'm an asset. I can do things that other people might not
right.
want to do.
I'm
Like,
an
I can share
asset.
those papers. I can sweep this floor. If it comes with a check, baby, I can do it.
Right.
I can write my dogs off on my taxes, baby, as employees. Nothing. You gotta have assets, okay? No liabilities.
So we are going to end the conversation there. This is Try Not to Overthink It signing out. I'm RJ.
I'm unique.
I'm Khalil.
If you like what you saw, we ask that you stop by the YouTube channel, like, share, subscribe. We can be found on YouTube as Try Not to Overthink It. If you would prefer to listen to the episode instead of watch it, I don't know why you would, because we are some very good looking people. Well, as a matter of fact, do both. Do both, because it helps the algorithm on both. On both. So we need you to both watch and listen to the episode. But if you if you gotta listen to it, please stop by either Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, pretty much everywhere you can find an audio file. We can be located as at the same name of Try Not to Overthink It. But this is us signing out, and we will catch you next time. Peace.